they whispered. She was too old the moment she stepped off the transport truck. At 38, Sarah Kane stood among 42 candidates at Fort Bragg's counter-terrorism selection course, her presence an anomaly that drew skeptical glances from instructors and recruits alike. While the other candidates averaged 25 years old, she carried herself with a quiet confidence that either came from experience or delusion. "Welcome to hell," barked Master Sergeant Torres, his voice cutting through the North Carolina morning as he surveyed the assembled candidates. "Over the next 4 weeks, we'll determine who among you deserves to join America's most elite counterterrorism unit. Most of you will fail. Some of you already have." His eyes lingered on Sarah longer than the others, taking in her auburn hair streaked with silver, the lines around her eyes that spoke of years under foreign suns, and the way she stood perfectly still while younger candidates fidgeted with nervous energy. Staff Sergeant Mitchell approached with a clipboard, calling names for initial processing. Sarah Kane. A pause. Age 38? His voice carried disbelief as if the number might be a clerical error. "Present, Sergeant," she responded, her voice steady and unremarkable. Behind her, whispers rippled through the formation like wind through wheat. 38? My mom's 38? What's Grandma doing here? Someone's having a midlife crisis. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, 24 and fresh from Army Ranger School, nudged his neighbor. $10, says she's gone by day 3. This isn't a mommy and me class. Sarah gave no indication she heard the comments, though her peripheral vision cataloged every speaker. 3 years of retirement from a career that officially never existed had dulled some reflexes, but situational awareness remained sharp as Damascus steel. The morning briefing took place in a concrete amphitheater, where Captain Elena Vasquez outlined the selection process. "This course has a 92% failure rate. Age, gender, background, none of it matters, only results." Her gaze swept the candidates. Physical fitness, tactical proficiency, psychological resilience, and decision-making under extreme stress will determine your fate. As candidates were divided into teams for initial assessments, Sarah found herself consistently picked last, like a childhood kickball game where nobody wanted the obvious liability. Team leaders, all young men with impressive military records, reluctantly accepted her assignment with poorly concealed resignation. "Guess we got the diversity hire," muttered Specialist Rodriguez under his breath as Sarah joined Team Alpha. During equipment issue, the supply sergeant looked her up and down skeptically. "You sure you can carry all this gear, ma'am? Some of these packs weigh 60 pounds. "I'll manage," she replied simply, shouldering the rucksack without visible strain. That afternoon's 5-mile assessment run revealed the first cracks in the age narrative. While several younger candidates struggled with the pace, Sarah maintained steady rhythm in the middle of the pack, her breathing controlled and even. She finished well within standards, though nobody seemed to notice amid celebrations of faster times posted by the front runners. As evening fell and candidates settled into barracks, the whispers continued. Sarah methodically organized her equipment, listening to predictions about her inevitable failure, while her fingers unconsciously traced a small scar on her wrist, a souvenir from Beirut that few people alive could identify. Tomorrow would bring the real test, and with them, the first glimpses of who Sarah Kane really was. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving over Fort Bragg as air horns shattered the pre-dawn quiet. Candidates stumbled from their bunks, muscle memory from basic training kicking in as they scrambled into formation. Sarah was already dressed, standing at attention while others fumbled with bootlaces and uniform adjustments. "Move it, move it." Master Sergeant Torres prowled the formation like a hunting predator. "Physical training starts now. Anyone not keeping up gets a one-way ticket home." The obstacle course stretched before them like a medieval torture device updated for modern warfare. 25 obstacles designed to test strength, agility, and mental toughness under time pressure. Candidates lined up according to their previous day's run times, placing Sarah in the middle of the pack. Lieutenant Morrison bounded through the first few obstacles with youthful enthusiasm, his athletic background evident in every fluid movement. Behind him, other young candidates attacked each challenge with aggressive confidence, treating the course like a competition rather than an assessment. When Sarah's turn came, she approached each obstacle methodically. At the rope climb, where several candidates had failed, she ascended with surprising speed, using an efficient technique that conserved energy while maintaining momentum. The instructors noticed, though their expressions remained neutral. Not bad for someone collecting Social Security, Morrison quipped as she completed the cargo net traverse. Sarah said nothing, focusing on the next obstacle, a series of balance beams that had claimed several victims. While others rushed across, frequently falling and starting over, she moved with deliberate precision, never losing her footing. During the afternoon's marksmanship assessment, the age mockery intensified. "Hope you brought your reading glasses, Grandma," called out Specialist Chen as Sarah approached the firing line. The course required engaging targets at various distances with different weapon systems under time constraint. Candidates had struggled with the complex scenarios, many failing to qualify on their first attempts. Sarah's performance silenced the jeers. Her shots grouped with mechanical precision, each target engaged efficiently without wasted ammunition. While others fired rapidly, hoping volume would compensate for accuracy, she took measured shots that found their marks with surgical precision. The range safety officer checked her targets twice, disbelief evident in his expression. "Perfect score," he announced, the first achieved during the entire course. The range fell quiet. Morrison's easy confidence flickered momentarily, as he studied Sarah with new attention. "Lucky round," he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. During evening tactical briefings, Sarah absorbed information with the focus of someone familiar with operational complexity, while younger candidates took furious notes. Struggling to track multiple variables, she asked pointed questions that demonstrated understanding beyond the scope of the material. Captain Vasquez noticed the questions, though she kept her observations private. Something about Sarah Kane didn't align with the typical candidate profile, but the woman's personnel file revealed nothing unusual. Just a veteran with unspecified overseas experience seeking a new challenge. That night, as candidates discussed the day's events, the tone began shifting. The easy dismissal was giving way to grudging curiosity. Sarah Kane might be older than their mothers, but she was proving harder to dismiss than anyone expected. The real tests, however, were still coming. By the end of the first week, Sarah had become the unit's unofficial target for frustration and insecurity. What began as casual age jokes evolved into systematic mockery as younger candidates struggled to understand how someone their mother's age was consistently outperforming them. "Morning, Grandma," Morrison called during pre-dawn formation. "Hope you remembered your arthritis medication." The jokes followed a predictable pattern. References to Social Security, grandchildren, early bird dinners and retirement homes peppered every interaction. When Sarah completed obstacle courses efficiently, it was attributed to old lady caution. When she excelled at complex tactical problems, they claimed she was overcompensating. During Week 2's land navigation exercise, teams were dropped in different sectors of the wilderness with coordinates to locate using map and compass. Sarah's team, led by Morrison, deliberately assigned her the heaviest radio equipment. "Experience should carry more weight," Morrison announced with false cheerfulness. Literally, the exercise required locating 5 checkpoints across challenging terrain within 6 hours. Morrison set an aggressive pace, clearly hoping to exhaust Sarah early and prove his point about age limitations. 3 hours in, Specialist Rodriguez was struggling. The rapid pace over rough terrain had depleted his energy reserves, and he was falling behind despite carrying minimal equipment. Morrison ignored his teammates' distress, focused on maintaining speed. Sarah, carrying nearly 20 pounds more equipment, moved steadily alongside the struggling soldier. When Rodriguez stumbled and fell, she was the first to help him up, sharing her water and adjusting his load distribution. "Can't slow down for everyone," Morrison called over his shoulder. "We don't leave people behind," Sarah replied calmly, helping Rodriguez maintain the pace through improved technique rather than raw speed. Her team finished second overall, despite the additional equipment burden and time spent assisting Rodriguez. More importantly, they finished intact, unlike 3 other teams that lost members to exhaustion or injury. The mockery intensified during combat medical training. "Think you can keep up with the young bucks, Mom?" Chen taunted as they approached the casualty evacuation course. The scenario involved treating a wounded soldier under simulated enemy fire, then evacuating him across difficult terrain to a helicopter landing zone. Most candidates struggled with the stress of providing medical care while incoming rounds cracked overhead. Sarah's performance was different. Her hands remained steady under pressure, her medical procedures textbook perfect. More striking was her calm voice reassuring the wounded soldier, providing confidence and control that reduced everyone's stress levels. When it came time for the evacuation carry, Sarah lifted the 200-pound soldier in a fireman's carry with surprising ease, moving efficiently toward the landing zone while maintaining security awareness. The instructors exchanged glances. Her technique suggested formal training beyond basic military medical courses. That evening, during equipment maintenance, the younger candidates' conversations grew more subdued. The easy assumptions about age and capability were becoming harder to maintain as Sarah consistently exceeded expectations. But the hardest tests were approaching, and with them, questions about who Sarah Kane really was before she arrived at Fort Bragg seeking a place among America's elite counter-terrorism operators. The woman they dismissed as Grandma was proving far more dangerous than anyone imagined. Week 3 brought psychological evaluations, designed to break mental barriers and expose character under extreme stress. The sleep deprivation had accumulated, food was limited to military rations, and candidates operated in a constant state of controlled exhaustion that revealed true personalities. The prisoner interrogation exercise became a crucible that separated pretenders from genuine operators. Candidates were captured during a simulated mission, subjected to psychological pressure, physical discomfort, and systematic attempts to break their resolve and extract classified information. Morrison entered the exercise with typical bravado, boasting about his resistance training at Ranger School. "They'll never break me. I can handle anything these instructors dish out." Within 6 hours, he was providing detailed information about his team's classified mission parameters. Desperate to end the psychological pressure, the instructors noted his failure without emotion. Resistance to interrogation required mental discipline that couldn't be faked. Sarah approached the exercise differently. When captured, she immediately shifted into a mode that seemed almost familiar, as if she'd experienced similar situations before. Under pressure, she provided only name, rank, and service number, deflecting interrogation attempts with calm consistency. The psychological pressure techniques, sensory deprivation, stress positions, verbal abuse, seemed to bounce off her like rain off stone. While other candidates broke within hours, Sarah maintained discipline for the full 24-hour exercise, never revealing operational details or teammate information. Captain Vasquez observed Sarah's performance through one-way glass, her expression growing more curious with each passing hour. "Her resistance profile doesn't match someone with basic military experience," she noted to Master Sergeant Torres. "Agreed. Something's not adding up with Kane's background." During the survival exercise, teams were dropped in different areas with minimal equipment and required to evade hunter-killer teams while navigating to extraction points. The exercise tested resourcefulness, teamwork, and ability to operate under pressure without support. Sarah's team found themselves in the most challenging sector, dense forest with limited water sources and active pursuit by instructors trained in track. Morrison, still team leader by military rank, wanted to move fast and put distance between them and their pursuers. "Speed is life," he argued during their initial planning. "We run hard, sleep little, and get to extraction first." Sarah listened without argument, but when she suggested alternative approaches, her ideas revealed sophisticated understanding of evasion tactics. Her proposed routes utilized terrain features for concealment, considered wind patterns for scent discipline, and incorporated deception techniques that went far beyond basic military training. "Where'd you learn this stuff?" Rodriguez asked as Sarah demonstrated how to create false trails using natural materials. "Survival school," she replied vaguely, though her techniques suggested instruction far more advanced than standard military survival training. Over 48 hours, Sarah's knowledge proved invaluable. While other teams were systematically hunted down, hers remained undetected, reaching their extraction point ahead of schedule without ever coming close to capture. The instructors' pursuit teams reported that Sarah's group seemed to vanish completely after the first 12 hours, employing evasion methods that suggested professional-level training in escape and evasion. Captain Vasquez made another note in Sarah's file, her curiosity about the woman's background growing with each exceptional performance. The final phase of selection brought challenges designed to eliminate all but the most exceptional candidate. Sleep deprivation, physical exhaustion, and psychological pressure had winnowed the Ornan 42 candidates to 18 survivors, with Sarah Kane somehow still among them despite every prediction of her failure. The stress shoot exercise combined marksmanship with extreme physical exhaustion and psychological pressure. After a brutal physical circuit that left candidates gasping, They had to engage targets while instructors screamed conflicting orders, explosions detonated nearby, and artificial fog obscured visibility. Most candidates' performance degraded severely under stress. Hands shook from exhaustion, concentration fractured under pressure, and accuracy plummeted as adrenaline overwhelmed training. Morrison, considered one of the strongest marksmen, missed half his targets during the chaos. Sarah approached the firing line methodically, her breathing controlled despite the physical exertion, as chaos erupted around her. Instructors yelling, smoke obscuring targets, simulated explosions rattling her bones. Something shifted in her demeanor. The woman who had quietly endured weeks of grandma jokes transformed into something else entirely. Her shooting stance became fluid, movements economical, target engagement systematic and devastating. While others fired frantically, she took measured shots that found their marks with mechanical precision. Perfect score, announced the range safety officer, disbelief evident in his voice. Under maximum stress conditions, the range fell silent except for the ringing echoes of gunfire. Even Master Sergeant Torres paused his constant critique, studying Sarah with new attention. Captain Vasquez arrived as the exercise concluded, having monitored Sarah's performance from the observation tower. Kane front and center. Sarah approached with the same calm demeanor she'd maintained throughout selection, though something in her eyes suggested she knew this conversation was inevitable. Your file says you're a veteran with overseas experience. Vasquez. No specific operational details, just general service record. Care to elaborate? Standard deployment history, ma'am. Nothing unusual. Standard deployment history doesn't typically include stress shooting techniques that match CIA paramilitary protocols, Vasquez observed quietly. Sarah's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. Subtle, professional, dangerous. I'm not sure what you mean, ma'am. The interrogation cell exercise that followed pushed beyond normal selection parameters. Candidates were subjected to advanced psychological pressure techniques while sleep-deprived and physically exhausted. The purpose was to identify individuals who might break under captured behind enemy lines scenario. Morrison lasted 3 hours before psychological pressure broke his resistance completely. Rodriguez managed 6 hours through sheer stubbornness. The average was 4 hours before candidates provided classified information to end their suffering. Sarah's performance defied explanation. 24 hours of systematic psychological pressure, physical discomfort and interrogation techniques yielded nothing beyond name, rank and service number. Her resistance wasn't stubborn defiance. It was professional-grade training in counter-interrogation that suggested experience far beyond anything in her official file. When the exercise concluded, Captain Vasquez found Master Sergeant Torres reviewing surveillance footage with growing amazement. She's been exposed to this before, Torres concluded. Real exposure, not training. Her responses are too automatic, too professional. Run a deeper background check, Vasquez ordered. Full classification review. I want to know who Sarah Kane really is. The answers, when they came, would change everything. Classified CIA safe house, Beirut, Lebanon, 7 years earlier. Agent Sarah Phoenix. Kane pressed herself against the bullet-scarred wall as automatic weapons fire echoed through the narrow alley below. 3 years of deep cover operations had brought her to this moment. The extraction of a high-value intelligence asset, whose information could prevent a catastrophic terrorist attack on American soil. Phoenix, this is Control, crackled through her earpiece. Extraction team is 30 minutes out. Can you hold position? Sarah checked her ammunition. 12 rounds left, 2 flashbang grenades and a compromised position with hostile forces closing from multiple directions. The asset, a frightened computer programmer, who had accidentally uncovered the terrorist network's plans, cowered behind an overturned desk. Negative on holding position, she whispered into her microphone, going mobile with pack. What followed was 40 minutes of urban warfare that would become a classified case study at CIA training facilities. Sarah moved through Beirut's labyrinthine streets like a ghost, evading pursuit through a combination of tradecraft, combat skills and intimate knowledge of the city gained through months of preparation. She eliminated 6 hostiles without raising alarm, using suppressed weapons and hand-to-hand techniques that left no evidence. When cornered in an abandoned building, she improvised explosives from cleaning supplies, creating diversions that allowed her to move the asset to secondary extraction point. The helicopter extraction came under heavy fire as they lifted off. Sarah provided covering fire from the aircraft's doorway, her marksmanship keeping hostile forces suppressed until they cleared the danger zone. Outstanding work, Phoenix, her handler said during debriefing. Textbook execution, under impossible circumstances. But the mission's success came with a cost. Sarah's cover was blown, her face captured on security cameras during the firefight. After 3 years of carefully constructed identity, Agent Phoenix was burned, requiring immediate extraction from theater and new assignment. Present day, Fort Bragg, Captain Vasquez stared at the classified file that had taken 48 hours to declassify for her review. Sarah Kane wasn't just a veteran with overseas experience. She was Agent Phoenix, one of CIA's most decorated paramilitary operatives, officially retired, but still carrying security clearances that exceeded most general officers. 15 years of classified operations across 4 continents, successful missions in hostile territories that most special operations units wouldn't attempt, a service record, redacted so heavily that only operational outcomes remained visible, but those outcomes told a story of exceptional capability. The medical reports revealed the cost of that service: chronic pain from untreated injuries sustained during operations, accumulated stress from years of psychological pressure, physical damage that would have ended most military careers but that Sarah had hidden through discipline and pain management. Her retirement hadn't been voluntary. Following a mission in Syria that saved hundreds of civilian lives but left her with permanent nerve damage in her left shoulder, the CIA Medical Board had recommended permanent desk duty. Rather than accept limitation, Sarah Kane had resigned and disappeared into civilian life, until she walked into Fort Bragg seeking a new challenge, a new purpose, a chance to prove that experience trumped youth when lives hung in the balance. Vasquez closed the file, finally understanding what she'd been observing for 3 weeks. Master Sergeant Torres, she called over the intercom, assemble the remaining candidates. We need to have a conversation. The final selection exercise pushed human endurance beyond reasonable limits. Candidates faced a 48-hour continuous operations scenario that combined all previous challenges into an exhaustive test of capability under extreme stress. Only 12 candidates remained from the original 42, and everyone expected at least half to fail the ultimate challenge. "This is it," Master Sergeant Torres announced to the assembled survivors. 48 hours of continuous missions, sleep deprivation, physical exhaustion, tactical problems, medical emergencies and combat scenarios. No breaks, no timeouts, no excuses. The scenario began with a simulated terrorist incident requiring immediate response. Teams had to breach a fortified position, neutralize hostile forces and rescue civilian hostages, while operating under extreme time pressure. Morrison, still team leader by military protocol, approached the problem with textbook aggression. Fast and hard, he decided. Overwhelm them before they can respond. Sarah listened to his plan without objection, though her expression suggested she saw flaws in the approach. When Morrison asked for input, she offered tactical modifications that revealed sophisticated understanding of close-quarters combat principles. Funnel their response through kill zones, she suggested. Use their defensive positions against them. Her modifications transformed Morrison's straightforward assault into a precise tactical operation that minimized risk while maximizing effectiveness. The team completed their objective in record time with 0 simulated casualties, the first perfect score achieved during the entire selection course. Hour 12 brought medical emergency scenarios that tested combat trauma treatment under fire. While other teams struggled with complicated procedures under stress, Sarah's performance was flawless. Her medical techniques went beyond basic military training, incorporating advanced trauma protocols that kept critical patients stable through complex evacuation procedures. "Where did you learn trauma surgery?" Rodriguez asked, as Sarah demonstrated arterial pressure techniques during a mass casualty scenario. "Here and there," she replied vaguely, though her skills suggested formal medical training far beyond combat lifesaver certificate. By hour 24, exhaustion had claimed 3 more candidates who simply couldn't maintain performance standards. The remaining 9 survivors operated in varying states of delirium, muscle failure, and mental fog that degraded decision-making capacity. Sarah seemed immune to the deterioration affecting others. While younger candidates stumbled through basic tasks, she maintained consistent performance across all skill areas. Her shooting remained precise, tactical decisions stayed sound, and leadership capabilities actually improved as others faltered. Hour 36 brought the ultimate test, a solo infiltration mission, requiring candidates to penetrate a defended facility, gather intelligence, and extract without detection. Previous attempts had all failed, as exhausted candidates made fundamental errors in stealth and situational awareness. Sarah's approach was different. She studied the facility layout with professional intensity, identifying patrol patterns and security vulnerabilities that others had missed. Her infiltration was a masterclass in covert operations. She moved through the facility like smoke, gathering required intelligence and exiting without ever appearing on security monitors. "How long for completion?" Torres asked the monitoring team. 18 minutes, came the amazed response. Previous best was 47 minutes, and that resulted in capture. When the 48-hour exercise concluded, Sarah had achieved the highest cumulative score in the course's 15-year history. While other survivors collapsed from exhaustion, she remained functional, alert, and ready for additional tasking. The impossible had happened. The woman they'd called too old had just proven she was the most capable operator any of them had ever seen. Master Sergeant Torres called the surviving candidates to attention in the briefing amphitheater, his expression unreadable as he surveyed the 8 individuals who had endured 4 weeks of systematic elimination. Captain Vasquez stood beside him, holding a classified folder that would change everything. "Before we proceed to graduation," Torres began, "there's something you need to understand about one of your classmates." All eyes turned toward Sarah, who stood at attention with the same calm demeanor she'd maintained throughout selection, but something in her posture suggested she knew this moment was inevitable. Captain Vasquez stepped forward, opening the classified. "For the past 4 weeks, you've been training alongside Agent Phoenix, one of CIA's most decorated paramilitary operatives. 15 years of classified operations that officially never happened." The amphitheater fell silent except for the whisper of wind through the trees outside. Morrison's face cycled through disbelief, recognition, and something approaching horror as he processed the implications. "The woman you've been calling Grandma has more confirmed kills than this entire unit combined," Vasquez continued. "Her mission record includes operations that most Special Forces units wouldn't attempt." She began reading selected accomplishments from Sarah's classified service record, each revelation more staggering than the last. Single-handed extractions from hostile territory, counter-terrorism operations that prevented mass casualty attacks, deep cover missions that lasted years in hostile countries, the Beirut extraction that saved 300 civilians from a chemical weapons attack, the Syria operation that eliminated an entire terrorist cell, planning strikes on American soil, the Pakistan mission that recovered stolen nuclear materials. Each citation carried weight that transformed understanding of who Sarah Kane really was. Rodriguez raised his hand shakily. "Ma'am, why didn't she tell us?" "Because Agent Phoenix was testing something," Vasquez explained. "Whether a selection course designed for 25-year-old operators could identify and develop someone whose capabilities transcended age limitation." Sarah finally spoke, her voice carrying new authority, as the pretense fell away. "I retired because medical boards said I was too damaged for operational duty. Too old, too broken, too much accumulated wear." She paused, meeting each candidate's eyes in turn. "I wanted to prove that experience and training could overcome any perceived limitation, that capability isn't determined by age or physical condition, but by mindset and preparation." Morrison stepped forward, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine humility. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology." "We all do." "You owe me nothing," Sarah replied firmly. "You performed exactly as expected. Young, confident, capable. My job was to prove that underestimating people based on assumptions could be fatal in operational environments." Torres resumed control of the brief. "Agent Phoenix achieved the highest scores in course history across every evaluation category. She did this while carrying additional equipment, enduring systematic mockery, and operating with physical limitations that would sideline most operators." He looked directly at Sarah. "Which brings us to why you're really here. The agency has requested your return to active duty for a mission that requires someone with your specific capabilities." Vasquez handed Sarah a new folder marked with the highest classification levels. "Welcome back, Agent Phoenix. Your country needs you again." The transformation in the surviving candidate's behavior was immediate and profound. The easy mockery that had defined 4 weeks of training evaporated, replaced by the kind of respect reserved for living legends. Morrison, who had led the grandma jokes, now stood at attention whenever Sarah entered a room. During the final week's advanced tactical training, the dynamic completely reversed. Instead of being picked last for teams, Sarah found herself sought after as everyone recognized her expertise. The younger operators approached her with genuine questions about tradecraft, combat techniques, and operational planning. Agent Phoenix, Rodriguez began hesitantly during a combat medical session. Could you show us that arterial pressure technique you used during the mass casualty scenario? Sarah demonstrated the advanced trauma procedure, explaining the medical principles while sharing hard-won experience about treating battlefield injuries under hostile fire. Her instruction carried the weight of someone who had applied these techniques under actual combat conditions. Morrison approached her privately after evening training. "Ma'am, I wanted to apologize for my conduct during selection. I was arrogant and disrespectful." "You were young and confident," Sarah corrected. "Those aren't character flaws, but they can become limitations if you don't learn from experience." She studied his earnest expression. "What did you learn?" "That capability comes in unexpected packages," Morrison replied, "and that assumptions can get people killed." "Good lessons," Sarah acknowledged. "Remember." During the final combat exercise, Sarah took unofficial leadership of the combined teams despite having no official rank authority. The younger operators naturally deferred to her tactical expertise, and she guided them through complex scenarios that previous classes had struggled to complete. Her approach emphasized precision over aggression, planning over improvisation, and team coordination over individual heroics. Under her guidance, the teams achieved mission success rates that exceeded historical averages for the final exercise. Captain Vasquez observed the transformed group dynamics with professional interest. "She's turned them into a more effective unit in 1 week than most instructors manage in months," she noted to Torres. "Phoenix was always an exceptional instructor," Torres replied. "The agency used her to train their highest-level operatives." The graduation ceremony took place on Fort Bragg's parade ground with minimal fanfare. The unit's classified nature precluded public recognition. 8 candidates received their qualification certificates and unit assignments, but the real ceremony happened afterward. Master Sergeant Torres called Sarah forward. "Agent Phoenix, on behalf of the United States Army Special Operations Command, I want to thank you for participating in this evaluation. Your performance has helped us improve selection standards and training protocols." He presented her with a unit coin bearing the counter-terrorism insignia. "More importantly, you've reminded us that true capability transcends demographics." The surviving candidates formed an honor guard as Sarah prepared to leave for her new mission. Each offered personal thanks, but Morrison spoke for the group. "Ma'am, you taught us that experience beats youth, preparation beats strength, and wisdom beats arrogance. Thank you for the lesson." Sarah accepted their gratitude with characteristic humility. "Remember what you learned here, and remember that everyone you meet has the potential to surprise you." As she walked toward the waiting vehicle, the operators stood at attention until she disappeared from view. 3 days later, Sarah Kane sat in a sterile CIA briefing room in Langley, studying classified intelligence that would have seemed impossible during her retirement. The terrorist network she'd thought eliminated in Syria had resurged with new leadership, advanced technology, and a plan that threatened American cities. "We need Agent Phoenix," her former handler explained. "This mission requires someone with your specific operational history and language capabilities." The briefing materials revealed a complex international conspiracy involving weapons trafficking, cyber warfare, and coordinated attacks planned across multiple continents. Traditional special operations forces were too visible, too conventional for the required approach. "Deep cover insertion," Sarah observed, studying the mission parameters. "Months of preparation, complete identity assumption, 0 official support." "Correct, and there's another complication." The handler activated a wall screen showing surveillance footage from various European cities. "The terrorist cell's security chief is someone you know, Dmitry Volkov, from the Beirut operation 7 years ago." Sarah's expression hard. Volkov had been her primary adversary during that mission, a former Spetsnaz operator turned terrorist facilitator, whose organization she'd dismantled piece by piece. His survival and current position meant the mission carried personal stakes beyond professional duty. "He knows Phoenix is retired," she noted. "Won't expect her to return, which gives us operational advantage, assuming you accept the assignment." Sarah studied the intelligence files, processing tactical requirements and operational risk. The mission would require months of preparation, extensive physical training to compensate for 3 years of inactivity, and psychological preparation for returning to a world she'd thought she'd left behind. Timeline, she asked. Deployment in 8 weeks. Full support for preparation, medical, physical conditioning, technical training, cover identity development. Outside the briefing room windows, young CIA trainees conducted exercises on the academy's training ground. Sarah watched them with the same assessment she'd applied to the Fort Bragg candidates. Young, confident, capable, but lacking the hard-won experience that came only through operational exposure. She thought about Morrison and Rodriguez, the operators she'd trained during selection. Their respect had been earned through demonstration, not claimed through reputation. The mission briefing represented a chance to prove herself again, but in an arena where failure meant more than hurt pride. Agent Phoenix accepts, she said formally. 3 weeks into preparation, Sarah received an unexpected visitor at the CIA training facility. Morrison, now assigned to a joint task force, had requested permission to observe her mission preparation. Thought you might want to know, he said, presenting her with a unit patch from his new assignment. The techniques you taught us, they've become standard operating procedure. You're still teaching, even when you're not there. Sarah accepted the patch, understanding its significance. The lessons learned at Fort Bragg were spreading through special operations communities, changing how operators thought about capability and limitation. As Morrison prepared to leave, he offered a final observation. Ma'am, we're better operators because we trained with you. Whatever mission you're preparing for, they won't know what hit them. Sarah smiled, the first genuine expression of emotion since accepting the new assignment. That's the idea, Lieutenant. That's always been the idea. The hunt for Dmitry Volkov was about to begin.